Last Friday, President Trump announced the firing of another investigator general. This time, it was Steve Linick, who was the IG watchdog for the State Department. Is Trump just exercising his presidential right to purge? Or is there something more troubling going on here? Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Tonic podcast. I'm Alex Kapitko, and this is one of our catching up segments. I hope everyone's staying sane. I'm sitting here on a beautiful day in Madrid, kind of getting mentally ready to slowly head back to the US. So other than that, nothing new. But today I want to just dive right in because there's a lot I want to talk about in a short amount of time. So on Sunday, Drew and I had discussed government accountability. And I'd like to go into that a little bit further because of the news surrounding Trump's continuous firings of government watchdogs. So this time, Trump announced that he was going to fire the current Investigator General for the State Department. Now, this came out on Friday when Trump sent a letter to Nancy Pelosi basically saying that he had lost confidence in the State Department's watchdog, who is Steve Linick. Linick is a seasoned government lawyer who had held this role since his appointment by Barack Obama in 2013. Now, on paper, I want to make it clear that this really doesn't raise any red flags, mainly because the president can fire an inspector general. I will touch more on this later, but it has happened before and it probably will happen again. But the main controversy surrounding this decision is not whether he had the right to do it, but rather, was it the right thing to do? Now, the reason why I want to talk about this is because this isn't an isolated incident. This is definitely a trend. And it only seems to be getting worse. I don't want to go as far as saying that Trump is purging the IGs, because that sounds a bit reactionary, but he really isn't helping his case here. Over the last few months, we have seen the administration give several inspector generals the boot. Now, the first big one was Michael Atkinson, who was the IG for the intelligence community. He was honestly a pretty little-known figure, but he gained national attention when he brought forth the whistleblower complaints involving the withholding of aid from Ukraine. Now, later, this created the whole impeachment chaos and the impeachment inquiry of Trump, and Trump later expressed distaste toward Atkinson and eventually fired him on April 3rd of 2020. Next, there was Glenn Fine, who was the deputy IG for the Department of Defense, and then later the acting IG of the Department of Defense. And on March 30th, he was named the chair of the Pandemic Response Accountability Committee. Say that a couple times fast. But anyways, this oversaw the $2 trillion stimulus funds that were signed into law. He was removed from this position by Trump, being claimed that he was a partisan hack. Then there was also the acting Health and Human Services Department IG, Christy Grimm. She gained recognition for issuing a report that mentioned that there were several shortages of hospital equipment during the coronavirus outbreak. She was also fired. So now, within a year, we have seen 3 other IGs fired for some sort of criticism or investigation into the Trump administration. And that takes us to the most recent IG to be under scrutiny from Trump, who was Steve Linick. And according to reports from Foreign Policy, The Economist, NPR, The Guardian, and The Washington Post, he was fired pretty quickly after he began investigating Mike Pompeo. And this is where it gets interesting because Pompeo is being investigated for 2 things, which clearly is not a great look, to say the least. First, he was being investigated for abusing his position. Basically, he was using diplomatic aides and his own security personnel for errands and personal tasks. According to Foreign Policy magazine, a whistleblower complaint from July charged him with tasking his security with errands like collecting his dog from the groomer and picking up Chinese takeout. Apparently, some of these agents complained about being treated like Uber Eats with guns. And like I said, that's just not a good look. But now the IG was also investigating a more serious allegation involving an arms deal with Saudi Arabia. This is an arms deal that's been in the news for over the last year or so. And the chair of the House of Foreign Affairs Committee, which is the Democratic Representative Eliot Engel, said that Linick was pursuing this investigation in which Pompeo was pursuing a decision to sell $8 billion worth of arms to Saudi Arabia. And now on paper, I guess that just sounds like normal diplomacy. But the weird thing is that there was a bipartisan coalition in Congress that objected to this arms deal. So you have Pompeo operating outside of a congressional decision. Now, in all these cases I've highlighted, there seems to be one consistent trend. All of these IGs have been let go for investigating some situation that reflects poorly on the president or on someone in his administration. In these cases, Trump is doing what a businessman would do. For example, if there is an employee in your company that is making your name or your business look bad, you fire them. But unfortunately, this isn't what happens inside of government. There needs to be accountability. I think it needs to be made clear that the IG exists to limit corruption inside of the government. They are holding everyone accountable. They are literally the watchdogs. And we all know what watchdogs do in real life. They bark when there's a problem. They alert their owners or people at their house that something is out of line. So I'm going to stick with this dog metaphor for a moment. If you own a watchdog and it doesn't bark at problems or intruders, what's the point? What's the point of having a watchdog? You might as well just get a home security system. And the same is true with the government. If Trump only wants IGs to be there that he can trust, then their entire role is pointless. Now, I'm sure that there are a few listeners out there who are thinking, but Alex, Trump has the right to fire these IGs, so what's the problem? And in theory, yeah, that's true. He can fire them. But I think that there's a lot more to this. In the House and the Senate, Congress did agree that the IG could be fired, and it has happened before on many occasions. Just to name two examples, in 1981, President Reagan fired all of the Inspector Generals who were appointed by Jimmy Carter. But after some backlash, he rehired some of them. Also, NASA's IG, Roberta Gross, was also released during the Bush administration. So clearly it happens. But Congress mainly included this measure so that the president can remove an IG for performance problems or malfeasance, not just for conflicts of interest or investigations. Now, obviously, it's hard to say when one of these factors comes up and when it doesn't. It's very gray. There's no black and white. But in Trump's cases, the IGs seem to be doing their job. It's also interesting that in 2008, Congress has actually guarded the firing of IGs for doing their jobs. They strengthened the program by requiring the president give 30 days notice before the actual firing takes place. So on these grounds, Linick actually hasn't been fired yet, but it's pending. But clearly he will be, and I don't think 30 days will change much, especially with Congress and the public basically only focused on this pandemic. But now, according to NPR, it is the duty of Congress to either challenge the firing or go along with it. And in the past, this happened in the 1981 Reagan example I gave. Congress can retaliate by publicly criticizing the move. This is what they did in 1981, which inevitably brought back some of the fired IGs. Congress can also threaten to not confirm the president's new appointee. From what I'm seeing, it would take like 3 to 4 Republican senators to side with the Democrats to do this. But I don't think that's likely. Clearly, the nation is very divided, and politics are at work. And I don't see that happening unless there's a big shift in public opinion. And now I do find it funny because in 2015, Mark Meadows, who is now working in the Trump administration, pushed the Inspector General Empowerment Act. And this was to protect the role of the IG during the Obama administration. And clearly it shows us that politics are at play as usual, shifting parties, shifting goals, shifting goalposts, and a lot of hypocrisy. Because now Ron Johnson of Wisconsin and Mark Meadows have basically said they are not concerned at all about the firing. Ron Johnson told Jake Tapper, "I'm not crying big crocodile tears over this termination. Let's put it that way." And it's not surprising. That's just kind of where we are right now. But I do want to wrap this up. So my general thoughts are that I think an independent IG is important, and that's why I'm kind of concerned. IGs I would consider to be kind of the eyes of the American people, and they keep public officials in check. Involving the firing of Linick last week, Pompeo said that Linick was fired because he was undermining the State Department's mission. Because in all honesty, it seems like Mike Pompeo seems to be doing that. And across the federal government, this seems to be a trend of this current administration. And we need to be honest, there are risks to slashing accountability inside of our federal institutions. Personally, I'm a fan of smaller government. I think state and county governments can be very efficient. But slashing government programs in every spot without any regard is not the same as supporting a smaller government. It's careless, and it comes with risks. We don't want to sacrifice the strengths and longevity of our institutions for short-term gains, and that's something we need to remember. So with that, I want you guys to have a great day, and Drew and I will be back tomorrow with a great episode, so take care.